The 2005 wave of LEGO Harry Potter was completely unmatched and was so unique and so cool. And set 4767, Harry and the Hungarian Horntail, is no exception to that, and I think a lot of that does come down to the fact that it has this giant specialty molded dragon, but also it has a ton of really cool play features. But before we get into that, let's talk about our 3 minifigures. Kicking things off is Albus Dumbledore, and this is the 3rd version of him that LEGO ever made. This time around, his outfit much more closely resembled Michael Gambon's Dumbledore, and he had an updated torso print as well as an updated face print. Not like you could see most of his face print anyway. He still had the same hairpiece and beard piece, but the sand blue color scheme really stood out in comparison to the rest of the Dumbledores, and this was also the first version of his minifigure where he didn't have a cape included. Next up is Mad-Eye Moody, and I think the face print on this minifigure is absolutely fantastic, and the hairpiece I guess works for him, but it's also incredibly basic for what I feel like Mad-Eye Moody's hair should be. He comes along with a shiny silver peg leg and has some pretty detailed torso printing as well. And then lastly, we have Harry Potter in his Triwizard Tournament first Tusk uniform, and he's the only minifigure in this set to actually have back printing. And the back printing too looks really, really nice. I love how worn and tattered and destroyed his torso print is. I think it really adds to the minifigure on this set. And just like the rest of the Harry Potter minifigures from this wave, he has an updated face print that makes him look a lot older and a lot more mature than the previous versions did. He still has that classic hairpiece though, and also comes along with this little accessory containing a magnet on the end, which actually leads us onto the first part of this build, which is literally 3 pieces. One of those pieces though represents the golden egg. Now you might not be able to tell since it's not really egg shaped, it's just a golden ball, but this ball has 2 magnets on either end, and you can actually use that piece that Harry is holding in order to pick up the egg and fly away with it, which I think is so cool and is definitely a really, really rare LEGO item. So despite being built off 3 pieces, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the set. And to go along with that too and kind of telling the story, first up is this one rock formation, which also serves as a play feature in order to kind of catapult Harry's firebolt to him so that he can fly on his broom and pick up that egg. This whole section is built out of very minimal pieces. It really just uses those kind of 2 giant rocks, but really the more exciting part is the catapult feature where everything is just kind of on some Technic hinges. And speaking of rocks, there's another little rock formation which uses again some giant rock pieces with a little bit of extra detail, including this hanging bat, and everything's on hinges too, so you can kind of move it around and spin it in order to kind of set up the set a little bit. And there's also a tiny little archway, so theoretically Harry can hide behind the rocks and plan his attack to go and get the golden egg. Then lastly, there are the stalls from the audience, which is a really simple build overall. There are some steps on either side leading you up into this tiered seating area where there are no studs, it's literally just all tiled off, which does lead us into another play feature. So as you can see, there's this really lovely banner build at the top, topped off with a couple of blue flags, as well as printed tile pieces of each of these schools that are competing in the Triwizard Tournament. And this entire thing is built up using Technic pieces because you can knock the entire sign down with the Hungarian Horntail or with your hands, and it will send the audience and all of the seats flying. And lastly, let's talk about my favorite and probably the most exciting thing in this build, the Hungarian Horntail himself. Now this is such an impressive model, and for the longest time was the best version of the Hungarian Horntail that we have ever gotten. I also like how they built up the tail a little bit so that 1, there was a couple of points of articulation, but 2, it just made the dragon feel a little bit more cohesive. And one of the coolest things is the very tip of his tail. 1, it kind of blends into that whole horntail aesthetic, but 2, it has this really nice marbled effect, which at first I thought this piece was just incredibly dirty. Turns out it's actually built that way. I have never seen a piece quite like it, and it is really, really neat. Now the head of the horntail is really cool as well, because not only does it allow you to kind of open up his mouth and close it, there are also 3 horns attached to the top, again, to just make him look a little bit more menacing. And you can actually attach 2 of the fire pieces in there using those little stalks that used to be on the fire flames that stick into the top of his mouth and make it look like he's breathing fire at all times. They do fall out kind of easily though, so I wouldn't want to knock it all too much, but I also think that's a really cool build technique. Then to top it all off, he's got a couple of wings that can flap and be moved up and down, that are all topped off with these 10 banana pieces to kind of represent his claws. Now the way that his feet are molded, they actually cannot be moved at all, and they're kind of molded together, which allows you to wrap this little string around and attach his chain onto him so that the horntail can be tied up. Like a lot of old sets, it is really basic and kind of built up a lot using really large pieces and really large structures, but I think this set has a lot going for it. The rocks are definitely a lot of filler. Like this entire rock structure here, it really didn't need to be present, but it builds up the scene a lot more and kind of creates a backdrop, and I think this set perfectly represents the scene that it was showcasing missing, which I absolutely love. Has some really, really fun play features, some amazing prints, and of course, the Horntail dragon itself, he is spectacular. After having this set in person though, that whole magnet play feature with the egg, honestly, I think has to be even better than the Horntail. As cool as he is, I haven't seen something like that in another Lego set since, and I really, really like it. If you want to check out my other 2005 Harry Potter set reviews, I'll leave a playlist on the end screen now, but otherwise, let me know what you think about this set in the comments down below, and until next time guys, I'll see you later.